And yeah, they see me and they want you to change into me. That's what they want to do. So that's why they're not very good in long-term relationships. They tend to cheat a lot. They invented the whole pornography industry. A lot of focus on materialism and the body and things like that. So they want the perfect body, perfect everything. They cheat a lot. And they spend a lot of time enhancing themselves and making themselves look better. Even the men with Viagra. It's all that ego that I was talking about before. The ego is dominating their thought processes. With religion, but the other thing with young souls, they hate being not normal. That's their biggest fear. They don't want to be the odd one out, right? They want to be normal all the time. So they will join mainstream religions and things like that. Not because they're religious at all, because there's a guy there texting in church. See, they'll go to church to be seen in the right place at the right time, but they're really not interested, and they just go there and they'll not pay attention. How do they relate to the other souls? Well, terribly a lot of the time. When you see these horrible pictures of slaves and things like that, that's young souls that did that. It's young souls who are the slave owners. It's young souls that create GMO crops, that decimate villages and things like that. That's what young souls do. Because it's like a bully ego. And normal. They want to be normal. They're always measuring themselves against other people. So who's got the biggest car? The most famous friends, the biggest parties, the biggest house, best boobs and hips, best lips, okay, and then a tummy tuck and all that sort of stuff. That's all young soul stuff. So all the people you see on TV, or your sporting personalities, it's over 50% of the population young souls, so a lot. So countries also have a predominance of soul ages. So all the technologically advanced countries around the world are basically run by young souls. There's old soul countries like Norway and Sweden and things like that, mature souls as well. And so the planet average at the moment is 5th level young. And for that reason, they are the establishment. They're the ones that create trends and the norm. That's it. They're the ones in charge. So we've learned how to survive. We've learned right from wrong, and we've pushed it really hard to see how far we can go, but something's missing. They can't put their finger on it. They've got all the money, they've got all the wealth, all the fame, but they're not satisfied. And this is where we come into mature souls. It's in the mature soul phase for the first time ever you become in contact with your heart. You connect with the heart. It's the first time you experience love. And I'm not talking about romantic love, I'm talking about unconditional love, compassion, things like that. Right? The first time that you'll experience it. And it's for that reason you start to look within, you start to empathise with other people. And as I said, all the wealth and power and everything is meaningless to you now because something's missing and you can't put your finger on it. So you start to explore. So mature souls in the first 4 levels are really in exploration mode. This is where they're getting in touch with their emotions. A lot of them end up as musicians and poets and actors and things like that, more sensitive people. So others see them as airy-fairy, but they're not. It's because they're dealing with much bigger issues. And for that reason, they tend to form little communities by themselves. So a lot of these, spiritual communes and things like that often are run by mature souls because they like to hang out with other mature souls because everyone else makes fun of them. So they're always looking for personal fulfillment, but they never find it, and they won't because there's no such thing. And they're the most complex of all the soul ages. Mature souls really have got a lot going on in their brain and their psyche and their psychology. They drive themselves insane, to be honest, a lot of the time because they're incessant sort of questioning everything. When they get into the later levels, 5th to 7th, they sort of start to work things out a bit. So by now, they've moved past the point of formal religions and things like that. They're starting to realise I don't need religion as such to understand who I am and what I am. But they will start to investigate other offbeat religions or spiritual ideals and things like that. And they're into metaphysical stuff, so what I call mind, body, spirit, which is everything from psychology to metaphysics to health, things like that. They're into everything. So level 6 is the real ugly one. This is the life where you've been cruising along and now you are ready, your spirit guides will be pushing you and they'll say it's time to get this one out of the way. Level 6 in mature soul is the single hardest life you'll ever experience, ever. And these are horrendous lives, trust me. I've met quite a few level 6s, and the thing with the level 6, right, so I'll tell you a true story about a woman I met a few years ago. I did a session with her, who was basically raped from the age of 6 by her own father, who used to invite his friends over to rape her as well. She had an alcoholic mother, the father was a drug addict, she was beaten regularly. But the thing is, she grew up to be a psychiatric nurse where she just has so much compassion. And the first thing that she'll do when you meet her, she'll say to you, how are you? What's going on in your life? She's genuinely concerned about everyone else. She's had all this abuse thrown at her. Younger souls would have become bitter and twisted and warped that into some sort of psychological issue, and understandably, I get that. But because she's now at the 6th level, I would say she's probably done this probably 70 or 80 lives having to deal with this. She's finally got to the point now where she can cope with it, she can understand it, and not only understand it, she can transgress it, she can go past it, and now she shows nothing but compassion. Once you get to that level, you get to 7th level, which is the last level for, it takes up to 100 lives. Before, the other ones take 30, this one takes 100. It's difficult. So we get to 7th level. So this is your last life in the mature soul phase before you go into old souls. Spirit would never say that you get rewarded, but I think it's a reward because when you get into the 7th level, this is the best life you'll ever have, right? You almost always do this one in one life. You just took 100 years to get through 6, then you do one life in this one. Because everything is sort of like the fairy tale. It's, again, I've met a couple that were 7th level matures. Basically, they grew up in a small town, they had a perfect upbringing as children, a nice sunny spot. They met as school kids and they went right through university. They were both archaeologists. They spent their lives travelling the world, doing archaeology, doing lectures and things like that. They just adored each other. They had 4 kids who had 10 grandkids and blah, 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 blah. They just had that sort of picture-perfect sort of life. But they were very, very down to earth. They weren't smug. They weren't arrogant. They were very giving and very, very loving. And that's 7th level. So that's a nice life, that one. So their motto is, I know how you feel. Because as I said, they're all about empathy. And they're very concerned with the woes of the world. All your save the whales, save the forest, save this, save that, mature souls. Mature souls love protesting and trying to save the world. That's what they're really doing. On social media, they use it to network because they love friends. They love having friends and things like that. So they'll look up old schoolmates and stuff like that. They're always clicking causes and likes, for different things. Their relationships, they orientate again towards other mature souls. But not always. Sometimes for learning purposes, matures will get with a young soul. And that's when, from the outside you're looking in, you think, why are they staying with that person? But then you think, oh, well, obviously signed a contract somewhere, before they got here. Yeah, but they want something meaningful in a relationship. where, you know, the young souls, it's all about body type. A guy will get with a girl because she looks like a model, where a mature soul guy, he doesn't care what the woman looks like. It's what's in her heart, it's what's in her brain that's important to him, right? Oh, and as I said, they sort of seek out offbeat sort of churches and meditation groups and, you know, pagan, neo-pagan and stuff like that, and Buddhism and things. Eventually they'll get to the point where they realise they don't need anything. As I said, they're always volunteering for something. Very highly sense of humour. Most of the sit comedies and things like that are written by mature soul scriptwriters. The whole hippie movement of the 60s was a mature soul phenomenon, but it was at the wrong time, really, you know what I mean? Like it hit at the wrong time, peaked at the wrong time. It was designed to counter the Vietnam War that was going on at the time, but they were just swamped, they were overwhelmed, and they were written off by the young soul media as being lunatics and weirdos, but they did try hard. So first time they experienced true love, they're the jobs that they do. They want to investigate everything, and they're working through a lot of emotional blocks, so that's why they tend to have a lot of emotional issues. So we know how to survive, we know right from wrong, we pushed it to the limit, we got in touch with our emotions, and the last thing we want to do is detach. We want to detach from the world. And I know a lot of people like to think they're old souls, but as you'll see, old souls are not what people think they are in the New Age. So old souls are learning to detach from the third dimension, right? Because they're not coming back. After they finish this cycle, that's it, they're done. So they're not concerned with money or celebrity or material wealth or even the woes of the world. Old souls move away from the high drama and intense emotions of the mature soul. It's not that they're not concerned, but they just don't get themselves emotionally wrapped up in it, right? They've got a more live attitude where, well, you know, it's just the way it's meant to be sort of attitude. And it's because they've played the villain and the hero in so many lives in the past. They've been in every sex because you change sexes depending, you do have a preference for gender, but at some point you have to do all the genders. And they'll be noticed from a very young age. They're odd children, they're very quiet, but they're also very inquisitive and things like that. And right now, we've got a whole bunch of kids being born that I call crystal children that are just amazing, right? I couldn't believe it until I met one. Their parents introduced me and I was like, whoa. And this was something we expected, those of us in the Ascension movement. We knew that these kids were coming. Well, now they're here. They're actually here now. They're everything from toddlers up to about 5 years old. And they're very, very old souls. So younger souls can't understand old souls. They're too out there. Nikola Tesla was an old soul. They're far out, they're cranks, they're weirdos, they're kooks. I love that picture because it says everything. There's the old soul with the wheels and the young souls are saying, no, 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 we've got this worked out. We know what we're doing. Right? That's typical. David Bowie, who I'm a big fan of, but he was an old soul. You probably can't read that. I'll see if I'll read it from here, because it's important. So he's saying, I had enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem, which I hid obsessively behind writing and performing. It's exactly what I do, except I enjoy it now. I'm not driven like I was in my 20s. I was driven to get through it very quickly, through life very quickly. So one of the biggest issues with old souls is their own self-worth, and I think it's because they're being told all the time that they're weirdos and they're kooks and stuff. Eventually, they're still human, right? They've still got a human brain, so they'll take that on. Not as badly as mature souls will. Mature souls will probably kill themselves, but old souls won't kill themselves, but they wish they could, sort of thing. You know? And yeah, that's all I'm saying there. But eventually they've got to learn to love themselves, and that's what David Bowie was saying. I eventually got to the point where he realised, I can have fun with this. And that's a true old soul. That's exactly what an old soul would say. And the other thing I hear, I think I'm getting to it. So live and let live is their motto. They're very individualistic. So they don't get into religions, but, you know, I'll get into that. That's like an androgynous. Third level old souls tend to look like that. They either look like aliens, I think, or they look, you can't tell if they're male or female. And yeah, this is what I was going to say. So just a note, I get a lot from New Age people that say, I'm in my last life. And I ask them about their life, and their life is in complete disarray. They've got, you know, children that are just driving them nuts, and their husband's cheating on them, and their life, you know, their work, they can't stand the boss. And I go, you think you're in your last life? No. Because to be in your last life, you can't be in your last life until you learn to love it here. You have to love it here, right? That's the whole point. What's the point of leaving if you haven't finished seeing everything?
So what happens after the last one?
Oh, get into that. I'll tell you when it comes. Okay. Social media, some old souls don't even know what a computer is, others do. They'll use it to teach, basically. They're all about teaching. They want to spread their wisdom to whoever who will take it, basically. Old souls are definitely loners. They tend to do things their own way. They're not into the nightclub scene or things like that. They only compromise 8% of the whole population, so there's not many. And they have very little attachment to casual, you know, one-night stands or co-workers and things like that. They're not very strong bonds with even their family members. It's not because they don't love their family members, they just don't feel that attachment. They feel more of attachment to the whole of the world, if you know what I mean. They feel compassion and love on a much bigger scale. They care about all humans. They're the sort of people, you know, there's a psychology test where they say there's a train coming and there's a bus on the road that's got 20 people on it, or you can divert the train to another track that's got your child on it. Which one? Where do you divert the train? Right? Almost all young souls, probably mature souls, would divert it to the 20 people to save their own child. I'm not judging, I'm just saying that's just what it is. An old soul would take out their own child to save the 20. That's really what it comes down to. Not because they're not compassionate, but because they value life much more. So they don't get too caught up either with relationships when they meet someone. If it's not happening really in the head, it's not happening anywhere else. And they don't bother mucking around with it. They won't waste time on a relationship that they just don't see is going to go anywhere. And sex is not highly prized by young souls at all, not in a casual sense at least. They're very good at sex because they understand things like the Kama Sutra and Tantra and all that sort of stuff, but they've got to be with the right person. They prefer to do like an individual spiritual practice, you know, like a sunrise thing on the beach or something for a birthday rather than traditional celebrations. And they're happy to give, you know, pass on their information to people, but a lot of people are not interested. How they relate, they're capable of unconditional love, and they constantly work to not judging other people. And that's why they often seem remote. It's not that they're remote, it's just that their mind is on other things, bigger picture stuff. But they're very compassionate. So as I said before, they've been through all the different soul ages, right? And so by now, they can almost turn their hand to anything that they try. They won't do it as a career, they won't do it forever, they'll just do it because they need to at that time, maybe to make a living or something. And detachment, when they get into the later lives, like 6th and 7th level, they tend to become hermits and vagabonds. That's Father Dolbray, I talk about him in the book anyway, he's an amazing man, but he's a classic example of a 7th level old soul. So people, you know, living in the suburbs typically aren't 7th level young souls. Typically, no, I'm not saying never, but normally they're detaching from the world, so they live these very, very scant existence. They just use what they can get by with, you know. They've got no attachment to anything. And I often say to people too, if you say, oh yeah, I'm not really that attached, if I said to you right now, I'm going to give you a free ticket to go to anywhere in the world that you want, but you have to leave every single item behind. You can't bring anything with you except the clothes on your back. And you're never coming back here. Who's prepared to take that deal? Everyone stops and thinks about it and thinks, oh, hang on, my cat, my dog, my children, my guitar, my music, my books, this, that and the other. They've all got something. And that's just because you're not a 7th level old soul. That's all it means, right? You're not ready for that yet. At the 7th level, you wouldn't hesitate. You would just say, yep, take it. Let's go. So finally with the soul's journey, we know how to survive, we know right from wrong, pushing it hard, we've got in touch with our emotions, and we've detached. And now, sorry, I was just about to get your question, but remember I had this bit. Just something I use to remember all this. Young souls wage war, child souls fight the war, they're the soldiers, patriots. Infant souls are the ones get swept up as refugees in the war. Mature souls will protest the wars, and old souls just shake their head and think, when are they ever going to learn? So that's how I remember it. So now, after you've completed all your soul ages, right, you're now not incarnating anymore, you stop incarnating, you end up in level 5, here, half a level 5, and 6, and this is where all the spirit guides come from. And the thing with your spirit guides, a lot of people think that you need to bow down and scrape to spirit guides and they're the almighty and all this stuff. They're not. They are souls like you that have been through all the incarnations, they finished their soul ages, and now they've said, well, we're going to serve further. Because other souls will just continue up into here, which I'll get to. Where others say, no, I want to keep in contact, I like the earth, you know, I like hanging out down there and having influence. So they become spirit guides. So level 3, also level 1 and 2, in the middle. If there was a hell, that's where it is. It's not fire and brimstone or anything like that. It's more like a psychological entrapment. Level 3 is where the average young souls end up, and 4. So level 4 is mostly mature, and level 5 is old souls. Level 6 is mostly spirit guides and highly evolved souls, and level 7 is really like where you merge back with the super consciousness, right? That's where all the information is disseminated back into the big thing. You do, at that point, you can go on to much higher planes where you can actually be the consciousness of a planet or a star, which is probably mind-blowing to a lot of people. I cover that in the book in more depth. But you never stop learning. When you go to spirit, you don't sit there playing a harp on a cloud, okay? You're actually learning, you're with your soul group, you continually learning stuff and trying different things out and doing stuff. It is fabulous and wonderful in the spirit world, it really is. It hands down beats Earth, but Earth has got some good qualities as well. That's why we all keep coming back here. Sorry, I'm just checking my time. Right. 2 minutes to go. Excellent. Well, I just have to quickly cover that Ascension, Soul Ages. Alright, so there's 35 levels in all. 3rd level infant's youngest. Average and 5th level young's the average soul on Earth at the moment. They're distributed in and this is in the book, a curve, so I give you the numbers to give you an idea roughly. So during the upcoming ascension, only mature souls and old souls have the hardware and software to attend. As I said, it's because they've got the heart opened. You need the heart open to be able to create the vehicle in which to ascend. And that's this book here. I'm not trying to flog my books, I'm just trying to say, if you want more info, it's all in there. all about the ascension and how to ascend and what you've got to do. I've had 2 people successfully ascend, create what we call a macabre. They've taken videos of it, which you can see on my YouTube channel. I've got a YouTube channel with over 100 and something videos. I've got series videos of all this stuff as well that you can access. So the Earth is a living, breathing organism, and she's on we call her Gaia, and she's on a personal spiritual evolution, right? And part of her lessons was to house us awful things, creatures, right? And that's what she did. And so now she's ready to move up to a higher dimension. So she's going to move from the 3rd dimension up to the 5th dimension. We've been given the opportunity. If we want to go with her, we can. But to do that, you need to prepare yourself. And that's what I talk about in that. Okay? So, yeah, moving from one dimension to another, that is ascension. That's what we're talking about. And basically, when we ascend, we go to the 5th dimension, we come on a renewed Earth. It'll still look like the Earth, you'll still be solid, but you'll be in a light body. You don't get sick, you don't die, you don't get old, you don't need food, sleep, things like that, right? Whatever you think, you can create. I've already covered all that. So yeah, just basically, again, talking about your heart chakra open. Yeah, you basically do it through meditation, diet and lifestyle. And it's a consciousness shift. Now, this is just a plug for my friend Anthony, but I'll be doing a talk at the Paradigm Shift, which is just up the road, in Service Paradise in August. In that, he's asked me to actually do the talk on what I call the mechanics of ascension. So what you actually have to do to ascend. And there's 2 different methods, and I'll be explaining both of them at the Paradigm Shift. And that's it. Anyone got any questions?
What date is that in August?
24th, I think. Anthony will be here next month, I think. He'll discuss it. I was there in 2017 where I did a talk about my meeting with the Palladians. If you're interested, that's on Paradigm Shift's YouTube channel. That presentation I did there is all videoed. Yeah, and it's awesome weekend, it really is. I recommend it. So I know there was a lot of information to take in, and that was about 1/10 of really the whole story. But just to give you an idea about the whole thing. So you're probably all sitting there a bit shell-shocked, yes? You got any questions?
What soul age are you?
I'm a old 6, old soul level 6. Yeah, so I haven't got to my 7th level yet. I don't intend to do it on Earth, to be honest. Because you don't have to come to Earth to do it. It's just you come to Earth to fast track if you want to do it quicker. So, yeah.
And where are you going to do it?
Epsilon Crucis. That's a star system in the Southern Cross. So you know the Southern Cross, you've got the stars and you've got that little faint one.
Yeah.
That's Epsilon Crucis.
And that's a good place to do it.
My word. Yeah.
Why did you pick there, Danny?
Sorry?
Why did you pick there?
That's where my soul group comes from, if you like. I'm not part of the human soul group. I didn't really want to get into that because it probably freaked people out, but yeah, that's home for me. Yeah. A lot of people come from the Palladians. I'm not a Palladian. I talk to Palladians, but I'm not one of them. Sorry? No, I'm not. They just use me as a conduit. Palladians exist from the 4th dimension up to the 11th, but they can't come to Earth for long periods of time. So what they'll do is they'll use, not just me, there's other people like me, they'll come to one of us as a conduit and say, here's a message, pass it on. And that's what we do. And before you think, oh, I'm just a crank full of, you know what, I did a talk in March 2018, just like this, and it was on a message from the Palladians, and it was all about UFO disclosure. Because the one thing I get asked about all the time, when are they coming? Are they going to come? When's it coming? So finally I did the talk, and I said 2019, and everyone went, oh, you're full of it. Well, guess what happened in May 2019? Fox News, New York Times, CNN, Washington Post have all now had stories, interviews, everything where they're admitting UFOs are real, they're here, we've been tracking them for 50 years. So suddenly,